There are growing calls to widen the probe into whether Russia hacked and influenced our election. A bipartisan group of senators is asking for a temporary select committee to investigate cyber attacks. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York explained why the intelligence community cannot get it done alone.
First, things could be left out. There could be holes that no committee covers. Second, we could get contradictory information. The FBI says this, the CIA says that, and they're not reconciled. And third, the existing committees are very, very busy. A select committee whose only focus is to get to the bottom of this is what is called for.
Meanwhile, incoming White House Chief of Staff, again, we'll hear from Reince Priebus, who says on Fox News Sunday President-elect Trump would be open to the findings of the intel community on one condition.
I think he would accept the conclusion if these intelligence professionals would get together, put out a report, show the American people that they're actually on the same page as opposed to third parties through the Washington Post. Right, but we haven't heard from Clapper, but we haven't heard from Comey. So look, I think that these guys should be straight with the American people and come out and say it.
And John Podesta, who was the chairman of Hillary Clinton's failed presidential bid, weighed in on all of it.
Nick Kristof wrote this morning in the New York Times that it's not that Putin and Trump were colluding to affect the election. It's that the Russians were trying to elect a lapdog. But I would argue that it's very much unknown whether there was collusion. So I think really not what Mr. Trump knew, but what did Trump Inc. know and when did they know it? Were they in touch with the Russians? I think those are still open questions.
Wow, I never knew that the Democrats could make 300 million people vanish. But by doing this, they're ignoring our own safety. They're so focused on politics.
I don't know why Podesta doesn't go away. That was a pathetic interview yesterday, and just, again, here's the thing. It wasn't the hacks. It wasn't the hacks. It was what was revealed by the hacks. Okay, and what America learned is that the Democratic Party, who had advertised themselves to be one thing, proved to be something else when they thought they were only talking amongst themselves. They proved to be biased. They proved to be mean-spirited. They proved to be underhanded. Ask Bernie Sanders supporters. I mean, they proved to be almost everything that they said the Republicans were. That was proven mostly through Podesta's emails. So it's embarrassing that he would actually get up there and continue this argument instead of hiding under a rock, because one thing's for sure, the Russians did not decide who became the president. Okay, now if you want to say the emails, guess what? Those emails were in the word to the Democrats, and they never denied that.
You know, Megan, as we look at the total picture, President Obama was talking about President Putin of Russia. And maybe you're talking about revelations that came from emails. How about revelations from the president? Let's watch that. I'm curious to get your take on it.
I felt that the most effective way to ensure that that didn't happen was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out, and there were going to be some serious consequences if he didn't. And in fact, we did not see further tampering of the election process, but the leaks through WikiLeaks had already occurred. So when I look back in terms of how we handled it, I think we handled it the way it should have been handled. We allowed law enforcement and the intelligence community to do its job without political influence.
You told him to cut it out. Stop that hacking. That doesn't even work on my 7-year-old.
No, in all seriousness, that clip has been hard for me to watch because it does make a mockery of those of us who have taken Russia so seriously as an international threat towards our national security. Same man who joked to Mitt Romney's face that it was a 1980s foreign policy program. There's so many elements to this. I agree with what Reince Priebus said, that the American public needs an illumination on this. We want to know what you're talking about with these hacks. That being said, it breaks my heart that our national security is being politicized by people like John Podesta for their own gain. And my final thought is, I am having a really hard time with the idea that the American public has such a lack of faith in our national security, in our CIA, and our FBI. A lot of people have been tweeting me over the weekend because I tweeted, do we really believe WikiLeaks over the FBI at this point? And a lot of Americans do trust them instead. That faith has been
earned over a long period of time, particularly the CIA. Over 50 years, they've gotten so many things wrong, particularly more recently. And
but
the FBI,
know what has gone on in the CIA. You don't know what our spies have done and stuff.
I'm not saying that they haven't done great things, but I do know from the Bay of Pigs on to more recently, they've squandered and missed a lot of great opportunities.
It's just so obviously political, though, because whenever it's impossible for the Democrats to talk about it without mentioning the election or alluding to the election, when it's been people on the conservative side who have been saying, like you were saying, Meghan, that Russia is something we need to be concerned about, and being mocked for saying Russia is something we need to be concerned about, until it becomes politically expedient, which is something that we saw in the emails themselves, too.
Yeah, and maybe not an accident that, you know, the American public would have hired, if you will, a president to deal with Russia who obviously has some strong thoughts about dealing with Russia.
Absolutely. I'll say this. For me, it's a really big problem that we are connecting two really important things that really shouldn't be connected in this political way, right? There's the issue of cybersecurity and the hack, and that's important. And we're seeing bipartisan calls from across all spectrums to get to the bottom of this. And hopefully President-elect Trump will accept a consistent place around knowing really what that's about. Then the other side is the electoral conclusion around it. And that's the problem, right? For so many people, they don't want to believe the nature of what's going on with the hack in Russia because it's dependent upon a particular conclusion. I think people are connecting.
They are, but I shouldn't be.
Your take on this. How did we get there? How did we get there? I mean, who legitimately believes that anything having to do with the hacking investigation that could take months or years would stop the electoral process that's going on in capitals right this hour?
Well,
who believes that?
From Podesta and things like this, right, that are saying this is why we shouldn't trust this election result. Of course, but I'm saying that's very problematic. It shouldn't be, Charles. That's kind of my point.
Just to put a button on this, though, my biggest problem is you can believe that Russia committed espionage on this country and believe Hillary Clinton was a horrible, flawed candidate. It didn't go to Wisconsin. They're not mutually exclusive. And John Podesta is trying to do it, as Kat pointed out, for
we must detach those, because as long as those are attached to one another, you're going to have people not paying attention to really important things.
Okay, we got to scoot. While some Hillary Clinton insiders have blamed Russian hackers for her election loss, as we were just saying, now some of them are reportedly pointing fingers at her top aide, Abedin. Oh, all wheels of the bus is being thrown under, and others in Hillary's tight inner circle. But is their goal to blame anyone but Hillary? Plus, New York Times columnist Paul Krugman suggesting President-elect Donald Trump may want a terrorist attack to earn political points. Did he go too far? And is this what the mainstream media consider fair analysis? Right after the show, join us. We pop up live online, foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click on the Overtime tab. And Facebook Live, our handle, Outnumbered FNC. We're coming right back.